Let's talk about one of the most exciting trades of the NBA offseason. This is a huge one that's already making waves in the basketball world. Karl Anthony Towns is heading to the New York Knicks, while the Minnesota Timberwolves are bringing in Julius Randle, Donte DiVincenzo, and a protected first-round draft pick. There's a lot to unpack here, so stick around as we break it all down. The stats, how each team fits these new pieces, and whether this trade is a win or a risk. Stay tuned because you won't want to miss this breakdown right here on Sports Frenzy TV. First off, this trade is a blockbuster, no doubt about it. The Knicks have been on the rise for the past few seasons, but they're clearly looking to make that big push into the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. Acquiring Karl Anthony Towns is a huge move in that direction. Towns is one of the best offensive big men in the game today. Last season, he averaged 21.8 points, 8.3 rebounds, and shot nearly 40% from three-point range. That kind of shooting touch from a big guy is rare and adds another dimension to the Knicks' offense. Think about what Towns can do for the Knicks. With his ability to stretch the floor and hit outside shots, he's not just a traditional center who camps out in the paint. He's versatile, can score from almost anywhere on the floor, and has a solid inside game to back it up. For a Knicks team that's been relying heavily on Jalen Brunson and RJ Barrett to create offense, Towns gives them a new weapon who can take some of that pressure off and make the offense much more dynamic. Now looking at what Minnesota gets in return, we have to talk about Julius Randle. Randle is coming off a solid season where he averaged 24 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. Before injury slowed him down last season, he was one of the most reliable power forwards in the league. While Randle isn't the same type of shooter that Towns is, he brings a lot to the table, especially when it comes to playmaking and toughness. He's someone who's willing to get physical, bang in the post, and provide a strong interior presence. And then there's Donte DiVincenzo. A lot of people might overlook this part of the trade, but DiVincenzo is a fantastic shooter who knocked down over 40% of his threes last season. Every team in today's NBA needs shooters, and Minnesota just picked up one of the best. DiVincenzo's ability to space the floor will complement Anthony Edwards' slashing game, giving the Timberwolves much-needed balance. What this trade also does for Minnesota, besides bringing in talent, is free up their financial situation. Karl Anthony Towns was on a massive contract. We're talking $224 million with a recent extension. That's a lot of money tied up. And with Rudy Gobert also locked into a big deal, the Timberwolves were staring down a tough future financially. By moving Towns, they create more flexibility for the future, especially when it comes to building around their young star, Anthony Edwards. Speaking of Edwards, this trade shows that Minnesota is all in on him as the future of the franchise. Edwards is coming into his own as one of the NBA's next big superstars. And now the Timberwolves are giving him the space and resources to fully take the reins. Randle can take on a secondary role, and DiVincenzo can stretch the floor to make sure Edwards has all the room he needs to operate. One interesting question this trade raises, though, is whether Minnesota should have traded Rudy Gobert instead of Towns. Gobert's fit with the team has been awkward at times, especially on the offensive end. He's an elite defender, no question, but pairing him with Randle could create some spacing issues for the Timberwolves, especially since neither of them is a great three-point shooter. However, Gobert's defense might be something Minnesota values more in the long run, especially since Edwards is taking over as the team's offensive leader. Having Gobert anchor the defense could be part of their strategy to build a more balanced team. Let's shift back to the Knicks for a second, because this trade tells us a lot about where they're headed. This isn't just a trade to shake things up. This is the Knicks signaling that they're ready to go all in. Pairing Karl Anthony Towns with Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Obi Toppin once Robinson gets healthy creates a formidable lineup that should be able to compete with the best teams in the East. Towns is going to be a huge part of that. His offensive versatility is exactly what the Knicks have been missing. He can stretch the floor, hit threes, and score inside, which will give Brunson and Barrett more room to operate. On paper, this looks like a team that can contend. But there's one concern here: defense. Towns is known for more his offense than his defense, and the Knicks just gave up two players, Randall and DiVincenzo, who contributed on the defensive end. With Tom Thibodeau as head coach, defense is a priority, so it'll be interesting to see how Towns fits into that system. Can he handle the demands of Thibodeau's defensive schemes? That's a question the Knicks will need to answer if they want to compete with teams like the Celtics or Bucks, who have elite two-way players. Let's not forget about the long-term picture for both of these teams. For the Timberwolves, this trade is about setting up for the future. Anthony Edwards is the focal point now, and having Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo alongside him provides solid support without crowding him out. Plus, that first-round pick from the Pistons could turn into something valuable, whether it's a future trade asset or a young player who can contribute down the line. For the Knicks, this is about winning now. They're banking on Karl Anthony Towns to help them make a deep playoff run, and they've sacrificed some of their depth and defensive strength to make it happen. Whether this trade is a success will depend on how well Towns fits in with the team, how well he meshes with the Knicks system, and whether he can stay healthy. That's a big part of this equation too. Towns has had some injury issues in the past, and if he can't stay on the floor, this trade could backfire for New York. At the end of the day, this trade is a gamble for both teams, but it's a calculated one. The Timberwolves are betting on Anthony Edwards to take the next step in his development, while the Knicks are betting on Karl Anthony Towns to elevate them into the conversation with the NBA's elite teams. So what do you all think? Did the Timberwolves get a good deal by focusing on building around Anthony Edwards while still picking up two solid players? Or did the Knicks pull off a heist by landing Towns? How do you see both teams' futures playing out with these moves? And do you think the Knicks' defense will hold up against the teams in the league? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe for more NBA content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.